Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
Ready?
Yeah.
Just shirt looking good?
I
Good
don't
enough?
know. I don't know.
Fortunately, the camera doesn't pick up on everything.
Fortunately, unfortunately, we have a dog who loves to shed all
Me
over
too.
everything
And
ever.
hang out with us.
And hang out with it. It's so attached.
Not
so
great,
attachment
not great
disorder.
for audio. So welcome to our live DC radio recording for our DC radio show, Wit and Reason with
Alex
and Dr. Alexis. We have been having a lot of fun with a new segment we like to call
Therapy or
Trash. And we still need a lot more toys.
Therapy or trash.
To help us to help us make sound effects and when we judge whether the stuff we find online and the stuff that you send us is therapeutic, helpful, healing, healthy, or just complete
trash.
Garbage. But today I'm feeling
so much fun to say.
Today I'm feeling extra vulnerable and like nervous. My heart rate's been a little more accelerated because we're going to be focusing in.
Earrings won't even stay on your head.
We're going to be focusing in on content on social media that's related to the ICE raids in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And the response to those ICE raids being protests that have been happening in Los Angeles, California, and then with other protests
all over.
Yeah, all over. Even saw some out in Savannah, Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I always love seeing them pop up in my feed. And so for me, this is for me both as like a human being and a Mexican American woman with a family who's been in the US since before it became the US.
Yeah.
The original, the OGs.
The OGs
of this land. We now call the west coast or western side of the US.
Yeah.
Formerly known as Mexico. Mm-hmm. This has always been a challenging subject for me to publicly discuss, especially like in a somewhat professional, educational or even entertainment purpose.
I mean, it's vulnerable. It also feels inherently political, even though it doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, everything is political. Let's be very clear. Yeah. Everything is political. Mm-hmm. You drink water, it's political. Like just keep that in mind. But here
whether
I'm going to say
it's
this
clean
way.
and safe for you, and who it's clean and safe for,
and how do you get it, and who has access to it,
and who makes those decisions,
makes the infrastructure, and what does it look? Yeah,
and who cares about whether or not the water is clean, or who has the privilege to not even think about that kind of stuff.
Exactly. So
yes, so even water is political.
All right. So but the idea is, it's also sociological and psychological. Mm-hmm. And even if you're taking distance from it politically and not taking a stance as to political parties or whatever else, there is the human element of this thing, which I think is really interesting for us to dive into.
Yes. And that's the line I try to manage while discussing these things, especially if we're trying to educate from a psychological or sociological perspective.
Yeah.
We also try to entertain and keep things light here as much as possible. It feels almost impossible to do when there's trauma happening outside our doors and on our screens in front of our faces. And so I also feel vulnerable because we both have backgrounds in forensic psychology, so working with people involved in the legal system and helping the legal system make decisions on people's lives, our clients, our patients' lives. Yeah. And yet I still don't feel like competent enough to discuss like immigration law.
Well,
because
but
that's not my specialty.
Sure, but also, I mean, sure, but
I'm also an American citizen and should have an understanding of it to a certain extent.
And whatever you kind of bring to the table is your version of that thing. So we could always fact check us and everything else.
Yes, please do.
It's also like,
especially on immigration law.
I mean, we're people in the US. And so how much do we know about our rights into those things is also kind of an interesting question.
So as I started doing the research to prepare for this show, as I was even deciding whether or not to talk about this subject matter on our show, I went through my AI research and had AI try to help me make sense of it all from credible resources. And there's a lot that I didn't know.
Yeah.
And I try to stay as up to current events and politics and policies and what's going on in our communities as much as possible. And even then there's a lot I didn't know. And when I was talking to you about it, there's a lot you didn't know either.
No.
Yeah.
I don't pretend to know everything, especially about the law.
Or about ICE or its history and how we even got here to the point where we can apparently have ICE raids in our communities.
Yeah.
Like, how is that even legal?
Well, that's my problem is, I would argue that it's not. And they would argue that it is.
And the law is saying, so go ahead and do your own research. My understanding is that ICE was formed in the early 2000s, around 2008, in a response to 9/11 and being able to identify and deport people who are a threat to our safety, like terrorists. And yet, as critical and serious as that sounds, and yet immigration falls under civil and just administrative administrative proceedings. It's not, from what I understand, it's not even a criminal act to lapse on your visa, while you're staying here. That's not a criminal act. That's
it's not punishable by jail. It's not punishable by these things. Yeah.
So ICE falls under this this lovely little civil umbrella that's not supposed to be treating people like criminals. And because it's under this civil administrative process, there aren't requirements like when you're following through like police making criminal arrests, where you do have to make sure that the people understand their rights,
their Miranda rights, the due process of law, everything that makes America
and that
American.
They get legal representation, and then they get to go through the legal process as quickly as possible, and
the right to a fair and speedy trial.
Yes. And so since it's not criminal, it's under civil, people can be detained for months. There's no requirements like those standards of care.
And that's the thing, they're sitting around doing something that looks and acts and sounds like jail, but without any jail. And in fact, it's worse than jail because they don't hold the same practices as jail, because those also have people checking in on those things to make sure that they're humane.
Right.
So because it's under something civil, you can treat them worse than criminals when they're not criminals, because you're saying they're criminals. That's why you're rounding people up, which, see what I mean? Like it's this weird circular logic that doesn't actually make sense. And that's
so it's like a loophole,
and that's how where cognitive dissonance comes in.
And that does not work for my brain in personal relationships.
But that's why people
or
this way.
Legal or political or societal, cultural. And so that's why my brain's like, I'm extra tired today because my brain struggles with stuff like that, and trying to make sense of it. And so again, please, if you're watching us in the either live or on demand, or listening to our podcast version of the show or broadcast on DC Radio, however you're accessing us right now, please fact check us. Please keep us accountable, especially if you are one of our friends in immigration law.
Yeah.
And tell us if for whatever reason the research we found is missing the mark completely, or if we're getting it accurately.
I love being told I'm wrong.
Yeah, we're totally fine. We have enough ego strength and humility to like be okay when we're wrong, especially things that are out of our scope of competency.
Yeah.
Right. So we need to have an understanding of what we're talking about here when we're when we're talking about ICE, because when I was looking at those raids on the news, I was like, how is this legal? Particularly how, unlike police officers, they're able to cover their faces and cover any identification, stating like what form of authority they have, who they are. That is terrifying.
Well, that's the thing. They're saying it's to protect the officers, but it actually instills more fear, which actually puts them more at risk.
Right.
Which is interesting because psychologically, all the things they're doing are things which actually incite anger, violence, frustration, fear, worry.
Which we're going to talk more about. But it's like, okay, so then,
but it's also
are you saying that then, like, ICE officers are at more risk than police officers?
Yeah, they are. That's what they're saying.
Because police officers have that equal vulnerability while showing their face, having their badge number, having their name. The same threats that ICE agents would have are the same to our exposed police officers, and yet they're still able to uphold, that practice of identity, and that public awareness of like announcing who they are and where they're coming from and why they're there. And so that part I didn't understand as well, which just took me off on this research.
Well, it's also interesting because with the lack of identification of a person, can you even ensure that when these people are getting taken, they're getting taken? So like, I could put on a balaclava.
Would you trust that?
I could put on a balaclava and a pair of khakis and a military looking shirt.
And there's people legitimately dressing like that.
And go and steal some people off the street and call myself ICE, and no one would have any idea. That's why it's dangerous. On top of that, that's why it's dangerous.
So we're gonna get into so now that we kind of have like a general idea of this history, how ICE was founded or developed. It's very new considering early 2000s.
I thought I was older, but yeah.
Go ahead, fact check me. And do it, please. And where we're at today in 2025, where we're having these large scale, what they're calling ICE raids, in a community where the majority of the minority are Hispanic individuals, Mexican Americans.
Yeah, it's only 20 years old.
20 years old? What year you got? The ICE was... What's the word? ICE was formulated?
Immigrations and Custom Enforcement.
And it's under Department of Homeland Security, right? So this is why I did my research earlier, so we don't have to slow this process down.
I know, but you said fact check you, but it's March 2003.
Okay, 2003.
Yeah, so 22 years old?
Early 2000s. Okay, that's
is when they started building this thing out?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
All right, so as we dive into this, and as we share what we've been seeing online, we got some videos from people talking about this subject matter on Instagram and on TikTok. Reminder that this content is for educational and entertainment purposes only. This is not therapy.
No therapy.
Though I think we all very much need it right now.
Yeah.
Everyone on all sides of everything. And that the content that we're sharing, I only share content where they let me download it. It's a permission that you allow people when you're posting. So if they don't let me download it, I'm not sharing it. There is one video though. I'm not going to share it with you all live. I'm going to show you where to find it, because it is very educational about the history of Chicanos in Los Angeles. And so what we are sharing under fair use for commentary and critique, and you'll find all the links to the original creators in our show notes on witandreason.com/DC radio. And I'll also try to add them to our YouTube channel, where you can find our show on demand at youtube.com @Wit and Reason.
You're so good.
Yeah.
You're so professional. It's like you've had a radio show for years.
Right. So go ahead and let us know in the captions if there's any material that you've seen out there that you believe has been actually very therapeutic for you in this process, or has been trash, or if it's a big question mark and you're like, I don't know, is this legit?
Yeah,
we'll tell you.
Yeah.
So go ahead and tag us at Wit and Reason, or share the video in the comments, and we'll take a look at it for you.
Awesome.
Okay.
You
ready to dive in?
Yeah, let's do it.
Oh, you're better at this. You go ahead and let's see what our first.
Do you want me to still shut this stuff or not?
Oh yeah. We'll pull up the video first, and then we'll talk more about who the creator is and what they're about and where you could find them if they're therapeutic.
This one, right? This one? This one?
Yeah.
All right. And this. And that.
I can't handle this, y'all. This is crazy, yo. I didn't think this was about to affect me like this. But, our neighbor's school, y'all know I work at a school. Fuck. Our neighboring school, I think it's Gratas, I don't know how to say it. It's Gratas or something like that. They were having their graduation. And there's helicopters in the sky. Most of these schools are... Fuck, yo. Most of these schools are predominantly Hispanic. Gratas, I believe elementary, was having their graduation. And all of a sudden, a bunch of parents have to run out because ISIS is there. This is the story that I'm hearing. And, our school goes on lockdown. Our principal, tells us it's a drill, but we know it's not a drill. And, I had to come outside. It's my break. We kind of got like off of a soft lockdown. And parents had to run out because they don't have papers. And they had to leave their kids because the kids do. What type of shit is this, yo? And then kids are freaking grabbing teachers and crying on their leg because they don't know if they're about to see their parents when they get home. What the fuck is this? And we voted for this shit? 15 people just got picked up on Wilshire at the Home Depot. On Wilshire. Yo. Man, oh my God. This is not right. This is not right, yo.
I appreciate that vulnerability so much.
What a sweet human and teacher. This is the person I want teaching kids. That's right. The kind, sweet, caring human. I appreciate that.
Okay, you're all going to have to excuse me while I try to flip through these to find
who this person is.
But you'll get a preview to the other people that we're showing.
No, that's not them. That's not them.
This one, education.
Yeah.
So there was actually 5 people or accounts, organizations tagged in this post.
Mm-hmm.
And this was one of them. So I picked one of the top ones from that.
Mm-hmm.
Can you read the...
Oh, yeah, I'm doing an eye test. George Lee Jr. Education.
What's their handle?
It's The Conscious Lee. So The Conscious Lee.
Followed by 639,000 followers. So a good following. Identified in education with a Master's of Arts in Adult Education and HR. NAACP Image Award nominee. Pronounced Weeby Award nominee.
Webby.
Yeah,
it's a Webby.
One. Yeah,
it's a Webby.
I get those.
Yeah,
I get those ads all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're interested in following this person, there they are. That's their Instagram, at least. Thoughts, feelings, both to you all and to Alex.
Well, because it's children. Children are highly vulnerable. They're always. I used to work with a Holocaust survivor. I think I've told you this before. And like his story starts with them all going. The families all going to a particular space to have a meeting. And he's not there, and his family doesn't come back. And
How
he
old
ends
was
up
he at that time?
11, 10. Louis was young. His book is awesome. He's a great guy. I'll plug it at the end. He passed years ago, and I used to work with him. I worked with him for like 15 years. He was awesome.
So his family was at a meeting?
They had fled part of Germany. They went to a meeting.
Mm-hmm.
I was supposed to talk about like logistics or moving or getting out of the area or whatever, and then they rounded everyone up and they took them away, and then they put them in gas chambers. So I mean, like, really it resonates with all of those feelings because kids are really vulnerable. You're then taking something like a graduation and making it something highly vulnerable.
Traumatic.
So you may be thinking this is a brilliant place to target these individuals because there'll be this audience there, but you're also then creating trauma and enemies and trauma and enemy, like you are being a terror. This is terrorism.
Yeah, how is
because
that?
you don't have, because people do not feel safe. So even people who are legally within the United States, people who are documented within the United States,
community members,
then feel highly vulnerable to be in those spaces. On top of that, because then they have to prove to you, because you don't have any jurisdiction. There's no due process. There's no nothing there. You're just stealing people.
And they've made mistakes along the way.
And deported people to,
and detained and deported U.S. citizens, which is just like absurd to me.
Yep. So with that in mind, you now have made vulnerable populations even more vulnerable, and people who should not feel as vulnerable even more vulnerable. And just it's a mess. And now there you are targeting children like a vulture,
targeting the parents of children.
Yeah. And you're going to call them all right. So you're talking about rounding up criminals.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But these are parents showing up to children's graduation at an elementary school. I don't really think of those people as highly criminogenic. That is not my target.
Right. And the
doesn't make sense.
The response that I hear from people who are praising these ICE raids is that argument that, they're just detaining and deporting murderers and rapists and human traffickers, and they're confused about who they're labeling as the Democrats, wanting to protect murderers and traffickers and rapists, and their perception of this reaction that people who are empathizing with people who are being deported in these communities is so minimized to think that's really. So you think that's really what people are upset about, that they're detaining and deporting criminals? That's not what the issue is. Everyone wants safety in their communities. People want justice. What you'll see from some other videos, the psychological disconnect is that people aren't upset because criminals are being detained and deported. They're getting upset because there's a lack of general human rights,
decency,
and dignity, and due process and democracy and
anything else that
safety,
we kind of and put these things on. So even if they don't have the same even if it's under civil proceedings and they do not have the same procedure as criminal proceedings, the fact that they don't follow through with what everybody thinks of as criminal proceedings for something that looks criminal. There are so many ways that ICE could make this less traumatic for both themselves and everyone else around them, and they just drop the ball. And
for the police who have to
they
pick up after them.
Everything. If you
now for the National Guard, and now for the freaking Marines.
Yep.
Like you're putting
because you were terrible.
You're so fucking sloppy.
Yeah.
And incapable and incompetent
of understanding what your quarry is.
That now we have to get the fucking Marines involved. Like, how bad of an organization do you have to be to fuck up so royally hard? That is not a reflection of the community who's having a natural trauma response to your involvement in their communities. People even like to say that under Obama's years that there were more deportations than under Republican years.
Well, and look at their due process. And if you look at their process, it's much different.
Right. And yet there was no backlash or protests or community-wide
And I'm sure
trauma.
He screwed up too. I'm sure there were screw-ups there too.
Yeah.
This is very little oversight compared to everything else.
So this isn't necessary. As much as people may think it is, it's not necessarily a left or right thing or political thing. It's a basic human rights and justice and legal system democracy thing.
I'm just thinking of organizational efficiency even.
Yeah, even just organization. And the thing is that like they all know how to properly do things in communities. They all have. Yep. They all have psychologists involved in their training and procedures and policies.
They may not, because they don't have the same.
Well, ICE, I'm not sure.
No, well, because they hire people to go.
Military does, National Guard does, police do, and so we all know, or you all have the information available to you on how to effectively intervene in a community to de-escalate versus escalate.
Yeah, and everything they do is
to really ensure public safety versus traumatize people with psychological warfare
and create something that's adversarial.
Yes,
like it's everything they do is then adversarial in nature, which is really dangerous in so many ways.
And it doesn't need to be.
But for them, for the people, for them, I mean, there was an officer got hit by a rock, and I'm like, seriously, like don't be there for that. Like that's not. I'm sorry, officers, don't be there for that, because again, that's not your job to do that thing, to then protect this civil branch of the government that's actually doing something fairly toxic. Don't.
And so the big question is that like are these the onset of the ICE raids that caused this snowball effect? Yeah. Or this domino effect. It is that onset of those ICE raids. Was that really for public safety? And it just so happens that all of these criminals, murderers and rapists and human traffickers were working at the same company. Were all those criminals? No. So is an ICE raid truly about public safety, or is it that psychological warfare and trying to exert this like power and control and fear and terror over communities?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Because if it really was about public safety, things wouldn't have gone so bad where, the communities are terrified and trying to protect one another. So let's hear what other people have to say about this as well. Go ahead and do the next one.
This one. That thing. There. This. Or this.
That one.
This one?
Yeah. So big fan of this TikTok influencer. I believe they're also on Instagram. Yeah. We'll go over who they are and how you could find them.
It's Sunday morning, and here's what we know about what's happening in LA right now. Over the last several days, the people of Los Angeles have been resisting ICE kidnappings. And I'm calling it kidnappings because we don't know who these people are with masks on and inconsistent uniforms. Half the folks who are shaking down the people of Los Angeles don't even have badges. I'm not willing to normalize what's happening there by reporting on it and saying these are ICE agents, because I don't know who they are. You don't know who they are. Again, they are masked, they are not badged, and they have inconsistent uniforms with what we have come to expect from Border Patrol, ICE, or the LAPD. Now, if you remember from when I worked at the LA Times, we reported extensively on the corruption that is in the Los Angeles Police Department and especially the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, so I am no friend of theirs. But even they were refusing to aid these ICE kidnappers in their mission. And even though things got very intense last night, the Sheriff's Department is saying that only one person was arrested. There were 2 fires that were put out, but there is no report of looting. No looting. No rioting.
No looting.
Resisting.
Yeah. Even to today,
the President of the United States is saying that he's going to send in the National Guard and was even threatening to send in active duty Marines from Camp Pendleton to tamp down on what he was calling rioting and looting. While he was hanging out at the UFC fight last night, he thanked the National Guard for tamping down the rioters and looters. Though the mayor of Los Angeles says that the National Guard actually never showed up last night. And now communications from the White House say, well, the National Guard will be there in the next 24 hours, though. The LA...
Yes, they are now. And so what I appreciated about what this creator referenced was the kidnapping aspect of it.
Because if you're not identifying yourself as an officer and you have you don't know. How do you prove it?
Yeah. And so if you could talk about from a psychological, sociological perspective on what that might be like for people in their communities where there are these authority figures.
Well, that's the thing. Like, you look at any film, TV film, and historically, we recreate this over and over again. These unidentified people are always seen as like unidentified, like officers or whatever, who kidnap people or pick people up, black bag them, all these other things that are seen as the villains. These are always the villains. They are never the heroes. So to be very clear, like, it triggers this strong schema in most people in around unidentified individuals kidnapping or taking off the streets, just like they would any other terrorist, criminal organization or whatever else. So with that in mind, you could look for Vendetta if you want. That's a good example of fingermen. They call them fingermen because they point somebody and they disappear. There's all these other things there, like, that discuss this or look at this as this authoritarian figure that has no accountability. And because they have no accountability, because they don't have a face, they don't have a badge, they don't have a presence, they don't have a body cam, there's no truth around that. And even now, like, we want our officers to be held accountable because they have a terrifying job and they can make mistakes, and we don't want them to make mistakes, but we want them accountable when they do. So body cam footage is a normal thing now. Officers looking at, badge, everything else there. Badge numbers are accessible now, or more accessible. Like, these things need to be clear for a due process, and it helps psychologically for safety.
Yes.
And sociologically, if you look at history, anyone who's not identified, right, again, goes back to the bad guys.
Right.
These are people who are either considered spies or other types of, like, scary.
I'm even thinking of, like, Star Wars. Like, who were the bad guys? And those white, those
stormtroopers?
Yeah, their faces, like, they're the bad guys, right? Their faces are fully covered. They don't have any identification on them, do they?
Nope.
And then who are the good guys?
Good guys, you can see their faces,
right?
You see exactly who they are.
I haven't taken it from, like, a media perspective, surprisingly.
I mean, that's where we do this a lot, where anytime you have any type of totalitarian, authoritarian government, I don't like using the word fascist government because people think the word fascist is wrong, but, like, anytime that you have this totalitarian or authoritarian government, right, and they have impunity to just do what they want, there is a problem with that. And we, as people in everyday life, are terrified of that, especially in America, because it challenges different aspects of that. So I think of a lot of these things are dredging up a lot of feelings from especially Angelenos in around that, but also in around, like, what it looks like to then fight that.
And the reality is that, like, they're asking a lot from the general public. They're asking them, trust me, I am an agent, an officer. I have this authority. Trust that. Now, trust that I have identified and detained the correct person. Trust that this person that I've identified and detained is a criminal. And trust that I will be taking them to the appropriate, detention center where they will get, processed. And then what a lot of us don't even realize is that, like, even under the best circumstances, being processed through ICE doesn't offer you a lot.
Well, and on top of that, what do you think about this? When now they've screwed up that and have deported people or held people who are not criminals, who are actually U.S. citizens, or at least on are here documented. There goes your trust.
Yeah. And so it's like you're asking us to trust you on like 4 different levels.
I'd say
in the heat of this moment,
as you're combining them, but yes,
in the heat of this moment, we're just observing this stranger with this mask, unidentified, in these, like, weird clothes. When we also have, like, weird militia guys running around playing.
They look very similar to Proud Boys. I mean,
like playing, military or like. And yet, under all these circumstances, we're just supposed to, like, trust all of these factors. And then, especially now, while knowing that even if all of that is true, or you are who you're from the agency that you say you're from, and that you got the right person. Even if you believe that in that moment, we could later find out that all of that is wrong.
Yeah.
And it has been wrong.
Yep.
And so why should communities trust you? Right?
They shouldn't. I mean, you haven't earned that trust.
And so
you've betrayed that trust.
So the person that we just heard from, use your eyes.
Under the Desk News. Just like
Under
the Desk News. It's so good.
This person's wonderful. Can you read what their thing is about? I wish I could make this bigger.
YouTube said Sega understood. Why am I reading that? Hello,
I just thought it said more
News.
about
No,
them.
does not say more about
those
that.
are all the places that you can find them: YouTube, Substack, and Instagram, and TikTok.
And if you don't know who they are awesome. So
what I appreciate about this creator is that when they're reporting the news, they're typically in like really cozy spots, sometimes under a desk.
They're always under a desk.
Were they in this one? I couldn't tell.
No, they weren't.
So it's not always.
They're almost always under a desk.
And they talk very calmly, and they like ease you into the news and let you know what's what.
And they're bite size.
Yep. Yeah. So if you're interested in this person, I think that was like the most kind of like personal information that they've shared on one of their like news posts.
They talk about themselves every now and then.
Yeah,
I usually
like hear them focus more on like what's what, but from a journalistic perspective, that's something that you don't usually get in the news as well. That personal angle on what their beliefs are about like the police, for example.
Well, there was a previous investigative report they did. All right, this one.
What are these other two? Are those the ones we played?
Those ones you played.
Maybe played.
Yeah.
No, that's supposed to be the last one. That one.
All right.
So let me get this straight. Y'all really thought you were gonna push LA around? This is where Tongva women, like Toy Perina, planned rebellions in 1785 to push the colonizers and their missions off her land. This is where the first Chinatown built by Chinese Americans is. 18 Chinese men and boys were lynched here in 1871, and they still chose to rebuild. This is home to the LA garment strikes. In the 1930s, thousands of garment workers, mostly Latinas, walked out of shops in downtown LA for 26 days. They got a 40-hour work week and fair pay. This is where the Zoot Suit Rebellion was. White sailors and soldiers attacked Chicano youth. In 1943, they ripped their Zoot Suits right off their backs. But you better believe they fought back. And blacks and Filipinos were right there swinging with them. This is where the Watts Rebellion raged for 6 days. Since police want to harass black folk, in 1965, we caused $40 million in damage to the neighborhood and built Ujima Village, Martin Luther King Jr. Hospital, Charles Drew University, all in its ashes. They sent down 14,000 National Guard troops for that. This ain't our first rodeo. This is LA, home to one of the Black Panther Party's most active chapters. They created the first SWAT team in America to raid their office. They killed chapter leaders at UCLA. They didn't stop organizing. Many of them went underground. This is where the East LA walkouts happened. In 1968, thousands of students walked out of class for Chicano representation and education. Black studies started at San Francisco State in 68, but Chicano studies started at Cal State LA in 69. This is LA, where the American Indian Movement, AIM, occupied the Bureau of Indian Affairs in downtown. 1972, they demanded sovereignty, enforced treaties, their land back. Baby, this is LA, when the feds cut funding to AIDS programs. The queer community not only stepped in to take care of each other, they took direct action. Act Up, the AIDS Coalition to Unleash Power, stormed the Federal Drug Administration's LA office. Cause why is the FDA gonna keep delaying approvals for AIDS drugs while all these people out here dying? They shut down Wilshire Boulevard to protest healthcare inaccessibility. They held die-ins and mass protests at Catholic churches, the CDC, and pharmaceutical giants. I mean, this is really LA. We've always been too much for the world. We have never backed out of a fight. The LA riots didn't happen for our health. They happened for our freedom. It's true we might not always get along, but we know how to protect one another. This is LA.
Ooh.
Right?
Oof.
Chills again, but this time in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
In like a,
but
it's like shitty that we've had to fight so much in LA or as a community or cultural groups, and yet there's also a sense of pride that comes with standing up for yourself and for your rights. It sucks that it has to be done.
Yeah.
It'd be nice if we had the privilege not to have to do that kind of stuff and not to have our clothes ripped off of our bodies because it's a style of our culture, of our group. Like, that is absurd.
Zoot riots.
I know. My parents made me go to a musical about the Zoot Suit riots when I was a kid, and I did not understand it. I was like, why am I watching these people in these weird outfits? Like, why is this a thing?
Hey, Pachuco.
I get it now. Yeah.
Yeah.
What did you think about?
I mean, this is why I think that this is how you're going to see responses from the people of Los Angeles, specifically regarding these issues. So, I mean, this is steeped in a cultural paradigm. So, like, you are
in history.
So,
in generations.
So in this, you think of, and so as I was watching these things kind of unfurl, I kept thinking of Rodney King and all the riots and things like that. And I like how he called the Watts Rebellion. Oof, it's so much better as rebellion. But like, you know, I mean, I think of these things regularly when it comes to the history of Los Angeles and when it comes to how people view themselves within the context of rights. This is a place of rights. Los Angeles is a place of rights. That's the identity that they hold. DC, very similarly, a place of rights.
Yeah.
So like, the folks of DC, you get busy.
You have move, your laundry list of things that you all Washingtonians have had to fight through and fight for.
Yep, and
continue to fight for.
And as people on what feels like the front lines of things, regardless of whether or not you feel like you have a dog in the fight, you're still there. So it's interesting because I think there are certain places and spaces that have this memory, and this sociological dynamic really kicks in. And makes this a hotbed, like makes Los Angeles, makes DC, makes places like Chicago or Detroit like a likely hotbed of these kind of reactions.
Yeah.
In a good, I mean, and I don't mean this in a bad way. This is just a reaction,
a response.
It's a response,
just like to anything else, and that's part of the consideration when we're looking at like how do we effectively intervene in something.
Yeah.
You need to know the community that you're intervening in, understand their history, their triggers, their traumas.
Yep.
And the understanding that's been passed down for generations. So when we talked about building trust, I was just talking about it like superficial here and now. I need you to trust all these things. But that's not where trust comes from. Trust is built over generations.
Yeah.
And so now we're asking, like, in general, who has trust for even authority figures, for law enforcement, for
they've really damaged that trust
since the beginning of the United States.
Yep.
That trust has been broken countless times. And so when you're walking into a community or working with people, it's not a blank start.
You don't have a clean slate.
No. And that's psychologically our means of survival. You could even think about it sociologically or
anthropologically.
Thank you. Anthropologically.
That's what I'm here for.
Yes. To help me say words. That's why storytelling is so important. That even before we were able to write things down and document history, we were telling stories passed down from generation to generation to teach the next generation about our history and about our challenges and about our accomplishments, who to trust, who not to trust.
Yeah.
And that's what you're seeing play out here in LA. So when you're looking at the news and you're seeing people have this strong reaction to this type of intervention, I don't even want to, what's a more appropriate word for that? To these ICE raids, it's steeped in history and experience from having that type of conflict, conflict and violence.
Yeah.
From authority figures.
It's just
in the past.
It's such a lack of thought, like, and not even like foresight just a lack of thought. Like, it's like running up to some person who is...
It's the willful ignorance for me.
Yeah. It's like, so you're like, hey, you've been traumatized by dogs because you were attacked by dogs growing up. And now I'm going to run up to you and attack you with the dog. Like, you're like,
now I'm going to bring this
dog here and make sure that, but I'm a good guy. And you're like,
this bomb sniffing dog all up on you.
I don't know. I don't know if that analogy holds, but still, it makes no sense to me. It's so tone deaf to like an entire idea. So I don't know. Let's shall we take a look at another one?
Yeah, go ahead and set up the other.
All right.
So let us know what you think about any of the videos we shared, any of the things we've said, agree, disagree,
this one,
hate what we're talking about today. Just let us know in the comments, whether you're watching live or on demand. Yeah, that one's fine.
Okay.
ICE and LA have gone to war, with ICE reportedly starting it by using military-style force against protesters, which led to even more protesters showing up. Right, yesterday, they conducted multiple sweeps around LA, which was the starting point for the clashes. With ICE wearing camouflage military tactical gear with military-style rifles, and they were riding in MRAPs. They also had their faces covered with no name tags or badge numbers. With reports saying they began throwing flashbangs, firing shotguns, shooting non-lethals at protesters, spraying pepper spray, and firing tons of tear gas. The LAPD then stepped in and declared the protest unlawful and began to disperse it. Right, and this is now the 4th city this week that ICE has encountered resistance from the people. Though it's unclear how much of the resistance is about deportations and how much of it is about ICE acting like an occupying military force. Right, and this is the MRAPs that ICE is using. They were designed for Iraq and Afghanistan, and the US military actually had to change how they use them because they found that locals often saw their presence as being very oppressive and that they instigated conflict. And you know, you're certainly seeing the same reaction here in the US, and the anonymity of these agents, it's only seeming to escalate it. But with that, you had the acting ICE director releasing a video today telling those criticizing ICE that he's demanding that they stop. But you also have a lot of people saying that if ICE got rid of the masks, they put their name tags back on and they dusted off the SUVs, that people would go back to ignoring them. But for now, let me know your thoughts and follow and share to stay in the loop.
I'll show you where to follow and share with this creator. Sorry, these are so hard to see.
Nope.
There you go.
There you go. Philip DeFranco, and I can't see that little tiny script there, but it's Philip DeFranco. At Philip DeFranco.
A dad who covers the news for you. Daily deep dives on YouTube as well.
Cool. There you go.
So I appreciate the way that they put all of that together. That's a lot to navigate in a short video. But what were your thoughts about?
That's exactly what we've already kind of talked about. Like, if you show a presence, if you follow rule of law, like if you follow like what the law looks like to everyone, like that's the thing. Like,
you're coming in a very hot and absurd way.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You would have to expect that there would be a strong reaction to something like it. Would be odd if there wasn't a strong reaction.
No. It's
from bystanders and community members.
It's so dumb. It is so dumb and dangerous.
Coming in hot and heavy military style like that.
You're so dumb and dangerous.
Ripping people from their place of employment or communities, wherever they're at.
I don't know what the criteria is for making these decisions, but whoever's in charge is just dangerous. Because they're just dangerous. Like, because I think about every I don't even know if they're technically officers, right? But like every person there trying to be as a part of ICE is in danger because they're making decisions that are so categorically stupid that it puts them in danger.
Right.
Like, really, just think about it from this perspective. Like, if I wanted to succeed in doing these things, this is the last way I would do it, because now you're looking like a military occupying force who's going through unchecked, like you would in, say, like how we picture Afghanistan, how we picture the Middle East, how we picture them like going through and like raiding different villages. You're doing that on American soil to Americans because they're not, you can't prove that these people are anything but Americans. How do you think people are going to react? This is dumb.
To people's neighbors and colleagues. And
so if you go and try and pick up my neighbor, I'm probably going to be pretty pissed about it, especially when I think you're kidnapping him, because you do not identify yourself as a person who actually is a officer of law or has any authority.
I mean, even if you want to like side on, on the safety of the ICE agents, or even on the safety of the police officers who then have to respond to your bullshit that you've created, and then to the safety of the National Guard and the safety now of our Marines. Don't you care about that? Don't you care about them? Because if you did, then you would be taking every measure possible to ensure that you're de-escalating, not escalating any of this. It makes sense.
Again, it's totally
let alone even caring about the community members.
I mean, to a point where it's almost like farcical. Like you've made such a total misstep that it almost seems like you did this on purpose. I don't know. It's so dumb. I'm not conspiratorial in that way, but like it's just so dumb.
Well, again, like they know what instigates and they know what de-escalates. I mean, it's just science at this point. Like we have best practices available, and you're just willfully choosing not to do that and do everything in the most dangerous, threatening way possible because you're trying to
flex.
Yeah, to flex this small dick energy.
I don't know.
Like Freud turning in his grave right now. It's like this is just too damn obvious.
Or it gives you a thumbs up and says small little dick energy.
Well, to how obvious their bullshit is.
All right, we doing this one?
Yeah, we'll end on this one. There's another one that I want to share, but I'll just post it in our stories.
Okay. You're going back to a country you never been to. Damn. Hey, you, come here.
Oh, it's okay, officer.
I'm a U.S. citizen. I don't give a damn.
But sir, I have legal status.
I didn't ask.
But I'm a law-abiding citizen.
Not my problem, buddy.
But I've served in the military.
That's good for you.
I'm a U.S. Marshal.
Hey, what's up, guys? I wanted to come on here, number one, as a Latino, to make sure that you guys are being safe. Mind you, they're detaining even American citizens. So best believe they might detain you too. So be careful out there. Take care of yourselves. Mind you, they're provoking everyone so that we riot to make immigrants look violent. They're doing it on purpose. Secondly, as a Christian myself, if you believe in God and this situation doesn't affect you, remember that the Bible teaches us to give refuge to those seeking it, to welcome in strangers, to help foreigners that share your land, okay? Not if they have legal status. The Bible never cared about that, right? So everyone, please be careful, be safe, and God bless.
Brought in religion. That's what I appreciate about that one.
Sure.
I was raised Catholic, and I mean, we played that out every Christmas. We played out Mary and Joseph seeking shelter for the birth of Jesus, and the whole message around it was to be welcoming to all and to house.
They end up in a barn.
That was their accommodations. Yes. So at the very least.
A barn?
They got something.
Your savior is a barn? That's rough. But yeah, so I mean, like, let's actually care for people. I mean, let's just be humane and just keep that in mind. I mean, like, that's not, if it doesn't hurt you directly, if that dynamic doesn't affect you directly, I think the important part of that is to understand. And I always go to the Hangman, the poem, The Hangman. They came for this, and I didn't say anything. They came for it, blah, blah, blah.
We'll say the poem.
It's like 10 minutes long.
Okay, we'll post it.
The Hangman is a good poem. Read The Hangman, but it's like they came for these people.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't say anything, and then they came for me. And I mean, that's what's interesting. You're seeing all these people who they're like, oh, but I did this because of this reason, and now they came for them, and they're really upset. So, Hangman, it's not new. It's an old poem, but
I didn't save that person's handle. Were you able to see it when we were playing it?
I can look that up right now. Give me 1 second. 1 second. Is handle. Their handle is geo.castle.
And that's through Instagram.
Instagram is geo.castle. So if you want to
who seems to do funny skits on the norm.
Yeah.
But had a little had to do a little, just like us, had to turn a bit and do a little PSA because of these circumstances that we're living in.
Yep.
So with all this said, how to level up?
Learn things historically, learn things legally.
I want to be real with you all and validate the experiences of trauma that you are actively going through right now.
Yeah.
As a community, even as bystanders.
Well, there's a lot
seeing
of
vicarious trauma. And this is well documented. This isn't my bias bullshit because I care about people. This is just the scientific truth, is that what is happening is actively causing trauma in these communities, with these kids, with the parents, with the adults, everyone in these communities.
And by watching it, you are then having that trickle down effect of more traumatic effect.
And even by watching the news, seeing it on social media,
or us talking about this,
watching our show right now, listening to our show right now, hearing the voices that we're sharing with you, you could also experience vicarious trauma through that as well.
Yeah.
Especially if you are a caring, empathetic, even analytical person.
Yeah.
Can get something like this.
Yes.
And so with that said, taking extra care of yourself and your loved ones, being extra patient, showing each other grace and compassion as you all are going through this. It's reminding me, like when LA went through the wildfires earlier this year, it was a whole community impact, a whole community trauma. We're going through it again in LA. And so take care of one another. Obviously.
But I mean, it also
take breaks.
And then, but also then look for the times, places, spaces that it actually is bringing people together. If you're just stuck in this sensationalistic conception of news, you're not seeing the whole thing, the whole picture. There's beautiful pictures of people coming together. There was also, my favorite one was the taco stand on the 101, where people are actually eating tacos and they're feeding people tacos while protesting and holding up those things. So you know what?
Even seeing the restaurant owners help get pepper spray out of sheriff's eyes, because sheriffs were there. They somehow got pepper spray in their eyes. They went into one of the local restaurants, and the servers there, who all appear to be people of color, are there helping the sheriffs, who was also a person of color, navigate all this. And I mention people's ethnicity or race because we are the communities who are being targeted.
Yeah, you don't see this in...
Even though there are, we can even look up the stats, so many other white people who've overstayed their visas, student, travel, or have even come in undocumented. Are they being raided? Are their communities being raided?
Well, because they're not criminals, right?
Right, because all the criminals work together and go to the same church and the same schools, and
and go to their kids.
But they may also be criminals.
Yeah.
So take care of each other, of your communities, engage with your support systems, talk this out, go to therapy,
play, do things that bring you some joy,
radical joy, and trying to find ways to experience pleasure and fun, like Pride. Pride was a riot.
Pride was a riot.
And now a parade. And we keep on having fun, and we keep on celebrating.
Pride is a parade that is a manifestation of resistance. It's not just a parade.
Correct.
It is,
or an opportunity for
it is an idea.
Companies to market their
rainbow colored shit.
So take care of yourselves, and we'll see you again next week, every Tuesday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. East Coast, and send us the weird shit you find online Send it to us.
You're like, I'm done. Just send us the stuff. Send us the stuff. We'll talk about it, whether or not it's therapy or
trash. Wait, let me put this little caption on.
Therapy or trash.
There we go.
That one?
Yeah.
That one.
Send us the weirdest advice content you've seen, or even just people like trying to talk about shit.
Yeah.
Or role model.
Oh, don't tell like coaches and creators to start sending us stuff to tell it that we can weigh in whether or not they're saying therapeutic or trash things.
Send us your wellness influencer stuff. Those are fun.
Oh my God.
And we'll let you know. If you need some extra self-care and support, meditations, sleep stories, sleep app. I'm on the Aura Health app. Calm's also a good one.
Aura is awesome.
There's also the meditation app. Take some time for yourself today.
It's easy. It's pretty. Look, Aura, do Aura. It's great.
You have a guest pass from me to access the Aura Health app there. And then you also have a link in our bio. Mm-hmm. And if you are in need of any extra support for your workplace, your community, yourselves, your family, you could find us at witandreason.com. And of course, here every week. Rain or shine.
All day. No
trauma.
Sleep. No sleep.
Joy. Whatever's going on, we're here to talk about it.
All right. And rascals too.
And rascals making a big mess. Until next week.